Ashley Victoria Koller disappeared from Corona, California sometime in August 2009. Her last contact with anyone who knew her was a desperate phone call to a friend. On October 20th, 2017, Unfound covered her case. Today we revisit this mystery with new commentary at the end. I'm Ed Dentzel, and this is Unfound. I had something occur in my life recently. I discovered that something I thought to be very true for many years, something that I would have bet money on, turned out to be false. I found out the truth after the fact. I wish I could tell you more about it, but it involves a case that will eventually be covered on Unfound. And trust me, you'll get the whole story when we get to that point, but I can't do that right at this second. But as you've probably experienced as well, it's very strange to be so sure of something, then find out you weren't correct at all. It can change your worldview in an instant, especially if the topic is something very personal, as mine was. This is the situation we have in the disappearance of Ashley Koller. And this episode is a good one for parents out there, especially ones who have daughters. Because today's is one where a mother raised her daughter the right way, took the time to homeschool her, got her involved in activities and groups, gave her the direction that Ashley's birth mother couldn't provide. But it wasn't until after the fact that she discovered Ashley had been covering many things up, things that she never could have imagined Ashley doing. And she still doesn't have answers as to why it all happened. And now a summary of the case. Ashley graduated high school in Corona, California in May 2007. At this time, Ashley was dating a boy who seemed to have an effect on her self-image. She started acting and dressing very differently, with the culmination of this being frequent clashes with her mother, to the point that Ashley disappeared for a couple days while they were in Las Vegas to celebrate her 18th birthday. In response, in January 2008, Ashley moved out of her mother's home to live with friends, eventually finding her way to Arkansas, where her family had lived a few years earlier. She stayed for several months with her friend Brittany, but kept in touch with her mother. Everything seemed to be fine. In August of 2008, after patching things up with her mother, Ashley moved back to California. She went to college in Riverside, but also started therapy to confront issues that had hurt her since childhood. In winter 2008, she got a job as a personal assistant to a woman who had an online business importing handbags from Europe and Asia. This was the perfect situation for Ashley in that it would allow her to go to school and work at the same time. She was even provided a place to live with the job. Yet, in the summer of 2009, Ashley's mother's ex-husband discovered distressing information on his laptop that Ashley had been using. She had been researching and talking to someone about becoming a call girl. When confronted with this information, Ashley admitted to the content on the laptop, but denied she'd ever do something like that. This would be the last time Ashley saw her mother. The last verified contact Ashley had with anyone was in August 2009, and that was a distressing short phone call with Brittany. Ashley's entire internet presence vanished by November 2009. Her disappearance remains unsolved. The interview for this episode is with Kim Brandy, Ashley's mother. Unfound News. Merry Christmas to all of you. I hope you are spending it with friends and family, with lots of love, presents, and eggnog. Next, I think I've secured another and new speaking engagement for 2022. I won't tell you the school yet because I don't want to jinx it, but the presentation will take place at a very large university in Florida. That will make it number 3 for the appearances on the schedule for next year. Finally, and to remind you all again, next Friday, update episode number 10. Wow. Where you can find Unfound. Unfound supports accounts on iTunes, Pandora, Audible, Podomatic, Spotify, iHeart, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Deezer, and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, please join us for the Unfound Live Show. Watch, ask questions, and give the show a thumbs up. Contribute to Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can also contribute at PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. I also need to give a huge shout out to all the people who have monetarily contributed using the SuperChat during the live show on Wednesday nights. Thank you for watching, and thank you for donating. The email address, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Merchandise, the books at amazon.com in both ebook and print form. Do not forget the reviews. Shirts at unfound-podcast.myshopify.com, or you can track down my assistant Heather in the Facebook group. Playing cards at makeplayingcards.com/sell/Unfound Podcast. The website, theunfoundpodcast.com. And please mention Unfound at all true crime websites and forums. Thank you. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the mother of Ashley Koller, Kim Brandy. Kim, welcome to Unfound.
Hi.
Tell the listeners a little bit about Ashley, about her as a baby, you raising her. Tell the listeners a little bit about what they would have experienced had they met Ashley.
Okay, well, Ashley was a very special little girl. She was, she had such a beautiful soul. She was very loving and gentle and kind. She was always so helpful to me, and she would love to cook and be my little helper in the kitchen, especially around the holiday times. Ashley loved to bake, and she had this, growing up, she had a special recipe that she would make over the holidays around Thanksgiving and Christmas as well, but she would make this like pumpkin bread, and everybody loved it, and she would make it as gifts, and we'd take it out to all of our families. And she just had this such a generous spirit about her. Ashley loved animals as well, and she was actually a very quiet person. She loved to read, and she loved to be around our family, and she loved her brothers and her brother and her baby brother. Ashley was homeschooled up until high school, and the biggest reason we decided to homeschool Ashley was because she had a very traumatic beginning, and I'll just give you a little information about that. So Ashley's father had a relationship with Ashley's mother, and it was during high school. They were very young, and her mother had Ashley moved to Las Vegas, and they didn't have a relationship as far as like they didn't stay together. They went their separate ways, and I think it was, a bad relationship. But so we actually lived with her mom. Her mom struggled. She was a single mom. She was actually arrested, and Ashley was taken away from her for a while. And that's when Ashley came to our family. And, I can just say that during this time, from the time she was born to about maybe 3.5 years, she had a very difficult life. And so when she came to us, Ashley had a lot of emotional problems at the time. She would cry a lot, and she would have like night terrors. She would wake up and not know where she was and things like that. And so when it came time for Ashley to go to school, we decided that we would homeschool her and keep her home with us. And she did very well, actually. So during the time that she was homeschooled, she was involved with many different clubs. You know, she played guitar. She was learning how to play the piano. She was in a science club. She loved the animals. Like I said, she did, she loved geology. She was in the Girl Scouts. She was a venturer. She had a great education, and we homeschooled her until she got to high school. And at that time, we had moved to Arkansas, back to where her father was from, his family. And it's a very quiet, small little town. And I really felt, Ashley wanted to go to high school, and I felt that she, would be okay going to high school. And so she entered into high school there in Arkansas. Growing up, Ashley, she loved the outdoors, and I think a lot of that is because she spent over 10 years in scouting. She was a Girl Scout. She was a venturer. And during those years, she did a lot of service projects. Like, she would clean up the ocean. She would clean up hiking trails. She would help dig hiking trails. She would volunteer at retirement homes, and she would go and, bake goods around the holidays, and all the girls would bring the treats in for the staff and sing songs and go caroling from all the, room to room to brighten up the days of the older people. And like I said, Ashley, she was just a beautiful, loving person.
How did she like it in
So
Arkansas when you moved there? Did she make any friends there?
she actually, Ashley didn't have a lot of friends, but the friends she had, she held very close. And it was difficult for her to leave California because she had two friends that meant the world to her. And so that was a little difficult for Ashley. When she did get to Arkansas, she went into high school. So there were a lot of people there, and she was working. Ashley was a hard worker. She always had a job. And so she had met another friend and became very close with her. Her name was Brittany. And another young man that was in one of her co-ed scouting troops. His name's Vinny. And those two people were, very, very close with Ashley. And actually, her friend Lisa ended up coming out to Arkansas and, stayed with us for like a month or so during the summer. So that really made her happy.
And did she graduate high school in Arkansas or in California?
She entered into high school there, and we ended up moving back to California. And so she had done 1 year as a senior in the high school in Corona, California.
And did she graduate from there? So that you're saying she had her senior year in Corona then?
She did. She graduated in Corona, and it was in 2007.
Okay. Now she obviously was a very busy girl, involved in a lot of activities. You homeschooled her, so you probably, as a parent, saw her more than maybe a lot of parents saw their own children, just sending them directly to public schools, at least in elementary levels. But you did notice some changes. Maybe these were just natural changes, getting to 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Maybe you can tell the listeners a little bit about that you encountered.
Well, like I said, Ashley, she's actually a very conservative girl, and like she didn't wear makeup. She loved the outdoors, so she didn't wear, um, like tight clothes, things like that. She didn't wear high heels, and she, when we came back here to California, when she was going to school, she met a boy named Carlo, and she started to go out with him. And during this time, I started to notice that she was really changing like night and day. For example, my daughter has like this really beautiful, like a golden brown hair and big blue eyes. And she dyed her hair jet black, and she started to wear heavy makeup. She started to dress, wearing like fishnet tights and heels, just not at all our Ashley, not at all. So I was concerned when she started to see this guy and how she was changing.
Would you say to her? Did she say anything? Have any discussions regarding that? Obviously, you're worried. I'm sure maybe you had one conversation, but.
I think that, of course, I did say to her that I didn't like the clothes that she was wearing. Ashley was, at this time, she was working part-time at Walmart as, I guess, a stock person. So she earned her own money and she bought her own clothes. And she was already 17. I didn't like how she was carrying herself. And we had gotten into an argument about it because she didn't like what I had to say. And for the very first time, Ashley looked at me and she told me, well, I'm going to move out. I'm going to move out with Carlo. I'm going to live with his family. And I said that, you're not going anywhere. You're not 18 years old. You're not leaving this house. And for the very first time, she looked at me straight in my eyes and she said, well, there's nothing you can do about it because you're not my mother. Mm-hmm. And that was heartbreaking to me because although I'm not her biological mother, I raised Ashley since she was just a little over 4 years old. And, it was shocking to me. She was always a good girl, and she just never talked back. She never, she just had such a pleasant personality and such a good heart. I was just really shocked that she would look at me and just, say that, and knowing that it would hurt me so bad.
Was this before or after she graduated high school? It was after?
This is right before.
Okay.
This is right before high school graduation, and she did pack her stuff and she left. And I did talk to the police, and she was over 17 and a half, and she was nearly 18. She had just like 4 months or so. I'm sorry. So she had like another month before she would turn 18. And so the police were like, there's really not much I can do anyway.
Sure. And so she went to live with, is his name Carlo or Carlos? Carlo or Carlos?
Carlo.
Carlo.
It's Carlo.
All right, Carlo. Mm-hmm. And so she went to live with him. And did he live by himself? Did he have any other people that he lived with? Parents, father, mother, or what kind of situation did Ashley move into?
Well, I didn't I didn't know him very well. He had come over a few times for dinner, and we did have a really big graduation celebration for Ashley with our entire family there. There was probably like 30 people at the house,
Mm-hmm.
and he attended that. But that was really it, and that was actually towards, I think, more towards a point where she maybe started to see things that were not right, with his family and stuff at that time.
Did you once she moved out, or did you keep in contact with her? Or was this like, I'm not talking to you for a while, or did you maintain that communication after she moved out? And how long did she move out for? Do you remember?
She moved out and came back pretty quick.
Pretty quick. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah, she moved out and she came back. And I think that a lot of what was going on was before she moved out, and I think she was really angry with me because I didn't like how she was dressing, and she just didn't like the control. She just wanted to break free and do whatever she wanted to do, and I was pretty strict with my kids. So yeah, she did, and I tell you, that was in May 2007, and so when she graduated, and her birthday is late July, so within a couple of months, she had already been on the outs with Carlo, and we went to a family trip to Las Vegas, and so she.
So you patch things up. I mean, these are things, I'm not a parent. Listeners should know that. You should know that. I'm not a parent. But I think what you're talking about is fairly common. Kids get to be 17, 18, and they have their own lives, and arguments happen. Things happen like that a lot of times.
Right. No, we did definitely patch things up, and, we were planning to go to celebrate her birthday. At this time, my husband and I were divorced. And he still lived in Arkansas, and I moved back to California. And so our youngest son, Joe, he would always go for the summers. And so the biggest reason I would go to Las Vegas is because I could fly him directly nonstop from there. If he was flying from LA, he would always have a layover somewhere. And so I would just drive out there and get him on the plane there, and then his dad would get him on the other side. But we decided this time that, we were going to have go and see a show and celebrate Ashley's birthday, her 18th birthday, in Las Vegas. And she seemed to be, at this time, back to dressing like, the Ashley that I raised, and she wasn't wearing anything outrageous, and all the heavy makeup was gone. She seemed to, like, when Carlos was gone, she seemed to just come back to the way she was. And so we went to Las Vegas, and she disappeared. She just took off and wouldn't answer her phone. Just missed her own birthday celebration, and it was pretty shocking that she would do that.
Just took off. It wasn't like she was. It wasn't like she said she was going somewhere, and she was just poof. She was gone.
Yeah, she took off. I had gone to the airport, and all the kids, 3, and so we were there, and she didn't go to the airport, and then when I got back to try to contact her back to the hotel, she wasn't answering, and we were only there for the weekend, and a couple of days she she was gone. And she showed up back at our house. Apparently she got a ride back from somebody that she had met. And that was pretty much, I was so angry with her.
I bet.
And we had another really big argument, and she took off, and she went to Sacramento to go live with her friend, Vinny.
That you'd mentioned before that she met him in Arkansas, but now he was in Northern California.
Right. So Vinny was part of the Venture Crew troop, which is a co-ed service troop through the Boy Scouts of America, and they were really great friends. He had a nice family, brought up really in the church, really good guy, really funny guy. And his family ended up moving to Sacramento. And he would come out and visit us. When we moved here to California, we saw him. He came to visit a couple of times, and they always stayed in touch. So after that big blow up, when she disappeared.
If I may ask, what did she say happened in Las Vegas? So you're saying that you went back to California and she got a ride back from Las Vegas back to L.A.
She showed up at the house. She wasn't answering the phone at the time, and I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
When I finally talked to her, she said that she was with a friend, and she wouldn't give me any details, and she said that she would just see me later. That was it.
Okay. And we know, obviously, the reason you're on the program is because we know that a couple years later she disappeared for good. And maybe that in Las Vegas situation could have been the start of something, possibly. But she, obviously, you said you and her had another blow up, which perfectly understandable. I'm sure you were losing your mind, her being gone for those couple of days. She goes up to Sacramento to live with Vinny, but at some point she also went the whole way back to Arkansas. And when did that happen?
During the time that she was with Vinny, but let me just back up for a minute here.
Okay.
I had one time she had come in, she was asleep, and she snuck out of the house, and she came back, and what she had told me was she went to go meet somebody, and then it comes out that she had been talking to somebody online, and I lost my mind. I said, okay, first of all, my daughter is like 5'2", and she was like 120 pounds, so she's not a big girl. And it's after midnight, and so I was just livid that she would leave the house. Nobody knew where she was. She went to go meet somebody that she met online, and I talked to her at length about the dangers of you don't know who you're talking to. You can't just go in the middle of the night and meet somebody. And it was shocking to me that she would do these things. Like I just I couldn't believe that she was like brazen enough to go do that,
Mm-hmm.
So again, in Las Vegas, this is another thing that she had met somebody online and she was going to, go meet with them. And I didn't, we don't know these people. It's when you have children, you grow up, they grow up and their friends are with them and you know them. And, they say, oh, hey, Mom, I'm going to go out with Brittany, or, Vinny and I are going to go here. You know who they're with. These people that she was meeting and talking to, I had no idea who these people were.
No.
And so, this was something about her that I just was shocking to me, that she had no fear. She would just go and do these things. So she, like I said, it was in August, and I was very angry, and she was very angry, and so she went to go and live with Vinny for a while. During the time that she was with Vinny, she had always had a crush on Vinny, and he's a great person. And I understood why she did. And when she went up to Sacramento, Vinny was in a relationship at the time. And I think Ashley really wanted to see if they could be more than friends. And so she spent some time up there with him. But Vinny treated her as a friend, as she always had been. And, she left there not feeling very good. She was pretty much heartbroken when she left Sacramento. And she wasn't feeling good about herself. And, she felt very alone at the time.
And how long was she up there before? How long was she up there?
She was there until January.
January of 2008.
And that's when she went to Arkansas. Right before she went to Arkansas, she found her mother. And I believe she found her in Washington. So she talked Vinny into going with her to talk to her mother. And Vinny actually drove her there to Washington, and she decided that she would stay for a couple of weeks to try to, work on and maybe repair that relationship with her mother. And things didn't go well there at all. And I don't know the whole story. I know that, the end result was that her mother dumped her off at, I think, a bus station, from what I've learned. And so, and that, I guess, I don't even know. I don't have words for how she must have felt at that time. I had no knowledge that she had gone to Washington to visit Jenny. But after that, she headed to Arkansas to live with her friend Brittany. And, she was trying to get a new start, I guess. She talked to me about that she wanted to join the Navy and she wanted to travel, and, that she'd be able to continue her education. And she went to Arkansas, and her friend Brittany was on the same path. And I guess they both decided together they were going to do this together. And so they were, working out and making plans. And during this time, Brittany was still in high school. And so, Ashley spent a lot of time with Brittany's mom, Cindy, during this time.
And how long was Ashley in Arkansas with Brittany? Because she eventually did come back to California. I guess she changed her plans, or what happened? And how long was she there?
Yeah, she was there for quite a while. She was there for about 8 months. So she was there from January to August. And we talked on the phone, and everything seemed fine, just catching up, and seemed like she was happy and she was excited that she was, heading to kind of, just turning over a new leaf and going to travel and everything. And she ended up calling me and telling me she was crying on the phone, and she said that she was sitting by the lake and she was very sad, and she hadn't been feeling well, and she just wanted to jump into the lake. And so she did. And there happened to be a couple that came by and saw her, and I, from what she told me, it may have been kind of an attempted suicide.
Yeah.
When she called me and told me this, I immediately purchased a ticket for her to come home the next day. And I got her into therapy immediately because of the way she had been feeling.
Once she got back to California.
Exactly. When she came back to California, she went into therapy. And
Well, while she was in Arkansas, did Brittany ever pass along to you anything? I mean, I'm guessing that her telling you this was the first bad news you got from her while she was in Arkansas, but Brittany never passed along anything to you that, man, it really seems like Ashley is down or anything like that those entire 8 months.
Brittany had, been over to our home many times. And she never called me and had any, to tell me that she was worried about Ashley. It wasn't until Ashley went missing that Brittany told me a lot of things.
Yeah.
And, I ended up finding out, according to Brittany and her mother, Cindy, that when Ashley got to Arkansas, she was on drugs and she wanted to be clean. She was taking painkillers. Brittany thinks it was Oxycontin and that she was highly addicted to it. They said that, when she got there, she was vomiting and going through withdrawals and very sick. My Ashley didn't do drugs. She didn't smoke. She didn't, she didn't have any tattoos. She barely got her ears pierced when she was 15. It was pretty shocking to hear that she was addicted to drugs. Additionally, Brittany told me that Ashley was extremely promiscuous when she was in Arkansas, that she would always want to go out, and she was, dressing a certain way, and she would go into the dance clubs, and her main goal was to find drugs. And so Brittany wasn't happy that Ashley was still, she had come there and she was trying to clean up and she was going to go into the Navy, but she had relapsed and she was, still doing drugs. And so she told me that Ashley had talked to her during this time and said, I think I'll be a stripper one day. I think I'm really going to do that. And, Brittany thought Ashley was joking. Didn't think that she really, really, was thinking about becoming a stripper. But, this seems to be her mindset, right? At this time, she really, one thing that Brittany told me was that Ashley really loved attention. And Ashley, my daughter, is very fit from all the outdoor hiking and body surfing and everything. And, just a beautiful girl. When she started to wear, tight dresses and high heels, she got a lot of attention. And she really loved it. She was eating it up. Mm-hmm. Brittany told me that she would go into the dance clubs and she would get up on like a little platform and she would dance, and guys would just crowd around her, and she absolutely loved it.
But you didn't find all this out until Ashley disappeared in August of 2009. Right. It was all unknown to you. Brittany never passed that along to you in any time in 2008 while Ashley was in Arkansas. You didn't find this stuff out until afterwards. And we'll get into that maybe a little bit later. So what happens? She comes back to California. You, of course, once again, you don't know about any of this, but you get her into therapy. And what happens when she gets back to California?
Oh, um, she is going to therapy. She does get enrolled into Riverside Community College, and she seems to be okay. She actually starts working as a graphic designer for a magazine, and she seems to be heading on the right, path again. Now, mind you, I don't know about all this stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So all
Yes.
I know is that we've had our problems. Most of it has been about, her behavior, unsafe behavior, a choice of clothes and choice of boyfriends. And I guess that's normal, right? With
Yeah.
mothers and daughters.
Yes.
So, in talking to her about, why she tried to take her life, a lot of it had to do with the rejection from her mother and her not having a close relationship with her father. She just really felt unloved by these two people. And even though, I raised her and she has two brothers, and I'm her stepmother. I've never treated her differently. I've never introduced myself as, Ashley's stepmother. I've always been mom, always. I don't know. I guess it's one of those things. And I've heard a lot about this with kids who are adopted, or parents, they don't know one of the parents. Maybe the father was never around. They just feel like there's a void, and they feel like something's wrong with them. And that's exactly how I actually felt, like double whammy. Like my mother and my own father don't really love me enough, and to be around, to stay with me. And so, she's home, she's happy, she's in school.
She's going to her therapy. She doesn't miss any of the therapy
Yep.
sessions or anything like that?
Right. No, she's going there. She, everything seems, seems good. Everything seems good. So,
and then she gets a new job.
Well, yes, she gets a new job. So,
yeah,
during this time, Ashley was watching this one show on HBO. It was a series called Diary of a Call Girl. And I noticed that she just was, obsessed with watching it. And she would rewatch the same episodes, and it was a series. She would binge watch it, and I just kind of thought that was just like a little strange. She was doing that. She was in school, and so what she was trying to do was she was putting out flyers and an advertisement on I believe it was Craigslist at the time. She was offering her services as a personal assistant. Basically, what she was offering is during the holidays she would babysit, she could clean a house, she could cook, she was just trying to earn extra money. And so she actually she finds a job as a personal assistant. She answers an ad on Craigslist for a personal assistant, and so.
And what was the job? And this wasn't just a job. This was like a living situation too, right?
This was a live-in situation. Yeah. During this time, Ashley went to school in Riverside, and she met a person named Jason, and she started dating him. And you know, she wanted to live with Jason, and so she had moved out again. And she would come home and she would tell me that, how she was feeling crummy again. And a lot of it was because of how he made her feel. He would put her down. I felt that he was, emotionally abusive, and I did not like Jason. And so, during the time she met him, they broke up, and she had come home, and about a week or two go by, short time, and she tells me that Jason's going to come pick her up, and she wants to go back and move in with him. And so this was like our third really big fight. I didn't want her to go. I did not like this person. I mean, she was fine at home, she was, from what I could see, she was on a good path. And I was just really angry. I didn't want her to go. One other thing, I guess, that was the tipping point was between the two of us, she came home and told me that she had professional headshots done because she was considering modeling. And she definitely is a beautiful girl. So she shows me these photographs of her, and they were borderline pornographic. She was in lingerie. She was posed, on the couch, and very suggestive positions, and, with her legs spread open. And I lost it when I saw them. And I told her, that these were not headshots, and I was just so angry, and I was just like, "What are you doing?" Just yelling at her, like, "What is going on with you?" So we got into a really big fight, and she, during this time, she wanted to go back with Jason, and I think it's, because she just didn't want to deal with me, and she wanted to pursue whatever path she was on. And so, she left, and it wasn't good that time again.
Did you ever find out where she got these pictures taken? Do you think that her boyfriend at the time, Jason, knew that she got these pictures taken?
Now, I don't know if Jason knew. I don't. I do know that he was in a band, and this is all from Ashley. He was in a band, and of course there's like a lot of groupie girls, and she felt like she had to really compete with them. And these girls were like throwing themselves at him and all the other band members, and they would play at the clubs and stuff. So I think that Ashley really felt like she had to look a certain way, and I don't know. I can't answer that question whether he knew she was having these photographs taken, but I can tell you that after Ashley went missing, we did track down who the photographer was, and we found the source from online. It's pretty old now, but it was a site called Model Mayhem, and so through that site she had posted up her photographs and her bio, and that's where people could go to get hired as a model. And so we were able to find the name of the person who's credited for the photos, but we weren't ever able to actually get in touch with that person. So that was kind of a dead end for us.
Interesting. Okay. So she likes this TV show, Secret Diary of a Call Girl, and then she comes home with these pictures. You had to be worried. And then she gets a new job in the winter of 2008.
Yes.
What was the job?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
And
What did she tell you
yeah,
about it?
I mean, she was so happy about it, and it was actually ideal. She thought I would be happy because she wasn't going to live with Jason.
Yeah.
And, she's like, yeah, it's actually a live-in assistant, personal assistant, and I'm responsible for like sales and basically marketing and sales. And I said previously she was creating, she was doing some graphics design work, and she was working for a magazine, and so she had a little bit of that background. She briefly worked there, but she did have a little bit of background, from marketing and advertising. So to me, when she told me that, I didn't question it because, of course, she's doing advertising and she's creating posts. She said she was doing online sales. And I asked her, what is this? She said, oh, I'm working for this lady. Never told me the name of the lady. And she was like, oh, my boss, she's really nice. She's funny. She's just like you, Mom. She's like a really strong person. She's a savvy business person. And, and I questioned her about was she doing. She said that the woman imported handbags from China. And it was her job to post, the photographs and descriptions and everything for online sales. That's what she told me.
Mm-hmm. And that started in the winter of 2008. So she moves in to live with this woman. It's an import business for ladies' women's handbags. And so she has this job. How often are you talking to her, and where is she living? How far from you is this place where she's living then?
She told me during this time that she was living in Sun City. And she told me that it was so far. And I remember saying, just for family dinners and things that we were planning up for the holidays. And when she would come home and have dinner with us, and she was like, oh, I have to go. It's so far. It's such a long drive. So, yeah, she was coming home, and she was, told me that she was working for this woman and living with her in Sun City.
And how far is that from you again? When you were living where? Corona?
Well, from Corona to Sun City, it was probably a good 45-minute to an hour drive for her.
Okay.
And that's without traffic in California, right? So with traffic, God knows, maybe 2-hour drive.
Could be, sure. Yes.
Yeah.
So you were seeing her. She's working. You go into 2009, and you've seen her. You're talking to her. You don't really think anything, or any red flags, yellow flags going up at this time with Ashley. Now that anything at all?
No, with Ashley, no, she's keeping in contact with me. She has, via Facebook, her email, and she had a pay as you go phone, and occasionally the phone would be out of service, but it wouldn't be that long, and it'd be able, she'd call back, oh, sorry, Mom, I had to pay this or pay that, and it was kind of normal, right?
Yeah.
And so she tells me that she's living in Santa Barbara, and then I don't recall the conversation or anything of how it came about that she told me that. It may have been that I wanted to go there, and see her, something like that. But that was just another excuse, is what I'm trying to get at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so,
And just so everybody knows that Sun City and Corona are nowhere near Santa Barbara. I mean, that's up the coast. I mean, that's a little bit of a move. That's not moving from Riverside, to Sun City. That's moving northwest of LA, up the coast.
right, it's very far.
Very
And
far.
she told me that they were going to relocate and have a storefront now. And she was going to work there as usual. She said that she would be able to go to school in Santa Barbara, and everything was great. And so she moved.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked, and like I said, there would be times where I could not get a hold of her, and she would check in, and I did not at all worry that something was wrong at all.
I should ask this: were her therapy sessions over at this point? Was she required to go for a certain time, or was it just at a point that you thought she doesn't have to go anymore, or she didn't want to go anymore? What was the situation of that in relation to her moving out of your house, moving in with Jason, then moving in for this job? What was the situation there?
She had stopped going to therapy, on her own, and she seemed to not be, when she came home, she seemed very fragile at the time. She was having crazy migraines, and she was in some sort of emotional distress, definitely. After she had disappeared in Las Vegas, and she stopped going to therapy, and I don't know whether she continued at any other time on her own.
Okay. So she's up there in Santa Barbara, a long way from you now. So I suppose that she can't visit as much, but she did go to see her dad. And what can you tell? When did that happen, and what all happened there?
Well, actually, she didn't. She didn't see her dad. She wrote a letter to her dad,
Mm-hmm.
and that letter to her dad was just kind of an accusational letter. You didn't do this for me, and you weren't around for me, and just had to get a lot of things off of her chest. She felt, it was kind of a heartfelt letter, but she was really angry and putting him on blast, I guess. They had, their own issues, the two of them, but no, during this time I had remarried, and in the 2 weeks that she had left Jason and come home and found this job, Ashley had borrowed my ex-husband's laptop, and she was looking for work, on the laptop. And it wasn't until Ashley went missing that I actually was told what she was looking for and what she was doing on that laptop.
He finally told you. He told you what he found.
Yeah. As I said, that marriage wasn't a good one.
Mm.
I was married for a very short time, and
What was she doing on his laptop?
well, she was actually looking into being an escort, and she was engaged in a conversation, a chat online with an agency, and she had asked, if inquired if there was security and if she would very, very, specific things. If
Yeah,
she was required to do.
this is a PG show, but very graphic
Yeah.
sexual things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She went into detail, asking what she was required to do, and I, he told me this, and I did not believe what he said at all.
You thought he was lying. You thought that your ex-husband was lying.
I thought he was lying. I thought he was trying to find a way to talk to me, But
right, and we have to remind the listeners, you didn't know about all that stuff that went on in Arkansas. You didn't find that out afterwards. Had you known about this, then you probably would have believed them. But being that you didn't know about all that stuff in Arkansas, you were inclined not to believe him.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
okay.
Absolutely not.
Sure.
He told me that, I was just angry at him, Yeah. And I had a chance to confront her about what was said.
She was. Let's set this up a little bit. So she's up in Santa Barbara. She's working for this woman, this live-in situation, and then at some point, did she decide that she wanted to come stay with you for a few days, or did you invite her? And I guess it was been summer of 2009, June, July of 2009. How did that all happen?
Yeah, it's her birthday, and we're making plans for her to come home.
And what is her birthday? July?
It's July 29th.
And I'm August 1st. She's a great Leo like I am. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Okay. Leo.
Okay. Right. I'm a Leo, August 1st.
So, yeah, we're all excited, and we haven't seen her for a few months, and we're excited. And, she had previously told me that she had gotten a new car, and she's going to drive it down from Santa Barbara, and she's going to spend, I think it was 4 days with us, like the weekend plus, right? Monday or something like that. And we were really excited to be able to celebrate her birthday with her. And so, time draws near for her to come, and then we're talking on the phone, and I said to her, okay, so, the plans, what time are you going to be here? When are you leaving? You're driving out? And she's like, oh, well, I don't have my car. Something happened to my car. My car broke down. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? You just buy a new car? What do you mean? Well, what's wrong? You have it in the shop? And I'm a mom. I'm like, what's going on? And, she says, Mom, the car's not working. I'm not going to be able to drive it down. And I said, okay, that's fine. No, whatever. We're going to come get you. No, she says, no, Mom, it's okay. I know you're busy. No, she's going on. And, she's, I mean, looking back at it now, she just didn't want me to know where she was. And, I offered to pick her up. I said, her brothers and I would go out and get her. And nope, I'm going to take the Greyhound bus. I was angry again. I was like, you can't take the bus. Like, what are you talking about? Why would you take the bus? We'll come get you. And she's like, no, I already bought my ticket. And, Mom, don't fuss over me and this and that. And at the end of the day, she showed up and picked her up at the bus. We all went down to the Riverside Greyhound bus station, and we got her. We picked her up. And, we went out to dinner, and, we had birthday cake and just family time. And
it was just like old times. Just like old times.
Yeah, just family time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like old times. Exactly. And then it came time for her to go home. And I asked her to say goodbye to her brothers at the house, and I wanted to have her by myself. And so when we got to the bus station, we're talking, and I said, Ashley, I go, Abe said something to me, and it's like, like really crazy. I said, but I just have to ask you. I just want to know what your response is. And I told her what he said, that she borrowed his computer, and she was looking into becoming an escort. I asked her, I said, this is what he said, Ashley. Like, come on, like that didn't happen, right? And she looked at me, and it was so awkward in the car. And she's like, well, yeah, Mom, but I wouldn't really do something like that. And I'm just looking at her like, what? And so again, I'm just shocked by this behavior. And I'm like, Ashley, you can always come home. If you ever needed anything, we're right here for you. For you to even talk to somebody about this, I was just so concerned about her at the time. Like, for you to even think and follow through with going online and going to an escort service and talking and having that conversation with somebody, I was just like, God, you are just so precious. To even think about selling your body and what are you doing?
So she didn't outright. She didn't try to lie her way through it. She just admitted that, yep, I did it. I mean, she wasn't.
Yep.
She didn't fully disclose everything, but she owned it.
No,
she owned up to it.
She owned it.
Okay.
She was crying. She started crying, and I thought at the time, she was crying because I was telling her how precious she is, and how much we loved her, and that's why I thought she was crying, and I totally believed her that she was not doing that.
Yeah.
And that was the last day that I saw her. That was the last day that I saw her.
And that would have been late July, sometime after her birthday, sometime around her birthday of July 2009. And so you drove to the bus station, and something that you pointed out to me specifically is you never did actually see what bus she got on that day.
I didn't see. I didn't look up. I mean,
no.
It's these things when you're, I don't know. I just didn't look up to see where is this bus going,
Right. Right. And once again, maybe you'd known some of the things that went on in Arkansas. You might have approached this in a little bit in different way. You might have been a lot more wary than you were. And I need to keep reminding the listeners of that, because once again, for let's just say since she graduated high school, you personally, seems like everybody who knew her was kind of a little bit in the dark as to what was going on behind the scenes in her life. She was not telling people things, and then some people were seeing things and not saying anything. But you personally, please.
No, I mean, if you knew Ashley and she said something to you like, hey, I think I'll be a stripper, you would never think that was like a legitimate, desire for her to actually do this. Like she would actually do it. You never would think this. It's just like, okay, you'll be a stripper, I'll be the president. It's like, a joke. I mean, that's what Brittany told me. She was like, I heard she was joking.
Mm-hmm. So you see her end of July 2009, and do you continue to do you talk with her on the phone? Do you email back and forth? Or what was the status of your communication with Ashley after you saw her that day?
It was, I didn't hear from Ashley, and, we had a couple of emails between us, and they just seemed to the time in between just got longer and longer, and I couldn't reach her on her cell phone, was out of order, and I didn't have an address for her. Pretty soon, towards the latter part of 2009, the emails that I'm sending, like, where are you? Hello, we're worried about you. The emails start bouncing back, and there's no address found for that. And Facebook is just gone.
The account, it's not just stagnant, it just disappeared.
Yeah.
Gone.
So every form of communication just gone. And none of her friends, she did not talk to anyone. She just vanished.
And just to be clear, once again, after you saw her that day, you never did talk to her on the phone anymore. All you did was have electronic communication, once again, through email. Never,
Right.
I mean, to put it bluntly, you never heard her voice again, to put it bluntly.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't.
Okay. So there's the possibility that we have to leave open that it may be in some of these emails, it might not have even been her who was responding, especially since you're saying that the responses, the time you talked to her, got longer periods in between them.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we have to be open to. So we get to November 2009, like you said. Virtually her entire footprint on the internet is either is gone or things are bouncing back. What do you do? What goes on at that time? You filed a police report, I suppose.
Well, we worry a lot.
Yeah.
And question whether she's angry, if she just doesn't want to talk to me, because we've had our issues in the past. It was puzzling to me because we had a really great time for her birthday with the family. And she was always close to her brothers. She was 10 years old when her baby brother was born, and she was like his second mother. And she just, he was like a little doll to her at that age, and she just always wanted to feed him and dress him and rock him. And, she loves Joseph so much, and she would never not stay in touch with him. She was always very close to her baby brother. So, October, nothing. Starting to get really concerned about her. Finally, the holidays are here, and she's, we're all freaking out. Like, what happened? Where is she? The worst part about this is the guilt of, I was just guilt. It was like regret. Like, why don't you have her address? To have a child out there and not know anything. I could just, I was just so angry at myself.
But you have to remember something, Kim.
Didn't know where to go.
The reason you didn't have it is because she didn't want you to have it. Okay, it's not because you didn't want it. It's because she didn't want you to have it. The reason you didn't know where she was living with this woman who was her boss is because she didn't want you to know. The reason you didn't know that whether she got on a Greyhound bus to La Quinta or up to Santa Barbara is because she didn't want you to know. Don't. I know it. I know this is horrible, but don't. Blame yourself too much. This was all part of Ashley's plan, and the listeners will know what I mean by that here in a moment. So I want you to understand that even if you'd have cornered her and all of these things, she wasn't gonna tell you. Okay, she wasn't. It's part of what happened to her, and I've had to learn that from experience myself, talking to people, exactly like yourself, who have loss in their lives. The reason these people don't know is because there were people who didn't want them to know. It's not because you didn't want to know. It's just you weren't going to be told one way or the other. So you file a police report, and you really obviously don't have a lot to tell the police. She's working for this woman, but you don't know this woman's name, but she's an importer of handbags, and it's allegedly in Santa Barbara. Can the police help you in any way?
Well, they started an investigation, and we, we went to Santa Barbara. We knocked on every door. Every storefront there. There wasn't any new businesses there. We went to Sun City. We put out missing, person flyers there. Got no help. During the time that there was the investigation, people started to talk, and I would sit with the lead detective on this case and just couldn't believe the things that I was hearing. It turns out that Ashley told me the truth. She definitely was working in sales and for this woman, and she was handling online sales, and it just wasn't handbags. It was actually
erotic massage, and escort work and things like that.
Right. Initially, from the interview with her friend Vinny, she was posting profiles and in soliciting people to come in and meet these into the massage parlor.
It was a prostitution ring. It was a prostitution ring.
That's right. And that's how it began. She would kind of make fun of it. She would send Vinny the pictures and links and say, "Oh, hey, check this out," and they would just laugh on the phone about the things that she would say in the profiles online. And then when it came down to the interviews with Brittany, obviously this is when I found out that Ashley was on drugs and addicted to drugs, which I didn't know.
Going back to our earlier in our interview when you talked about her going to clubs and wanting to, being very promiscuous down there, and she had this opioid addiction and all of that stuff. This is when you found November 2009 into early 2010 is when you eventually found all this stuff out.
Yeah, this is when my mind was blown. And so she had told Brittany that she worked in a massage parlor and she was actually performing certain sex acts and a lot of other things. And so, Brittany and Vinny do know each other, but they're not friends. And they did go to the same high school, but Vinny graduated a year earlier like Ashley did. And, they weren't friends. And so we've got one person in Arkansas and, saying that she is working for this as an erotic masseuse for, they all said it was a woman. They all said that she was in Riverside somewhere. And so there's another interview done on a guy, Jason, that she dated, and he had a conversation. He said that she had called him and said that she was doing certain things with the clients. And so, he's not connected to anyone else. So he doesn't know Brittany or Vinny. And so I'm just like,
So everybody knew a little.
I
All
didn't want to
these
believe it.
Jason is the musician. Just to remind everybody,
Hmm.
Jason was the musician, and then Brittany's in Arkansas. Vinny was in Arkansas, but then he was in Northern California. They all kind
Hmm.
of knew bits and pieces. Ashley had been very honest with them, to be frank, about little pieces of what she was doing, but none of them ever told you. And it seems none of them, I guess, kind of even knew each other, so they couldn't even corroborate each other's stories to get a really accurate picture of what Ashley was doing with her life.
Well, yeah. So Vinny only knew the part that she was posting, the profiles, the online
Yeah.
profiles to solicit for the massage parlor. He knew that part. Brittany was able to, you know, to tell us how far she claimed she had gone, and Jason, he was the second person that had the same story. They all had similar stories.
Mm-hmm.
And then my ex-husband is, the one who found her messages still on his computer, to get involved into this kind of business.
Yes, and then you put that together with her watching that TV show, The Secret Diary of a Call
Mm-hmm.
Girl, and
Yeah.
it's a very complete picture. But Brittany, though, after Ashley left you in late July of 2009, Brittany did talk to Ashley, and in fact, she had, I guess, some chilling stories that Ashley would call
Brittany was
her.
the last one that actually spoke with Ashley,
Mm-hmm.
and so during this time, Brittany would receive calls from Ashley sporadically, and they would be from different numbers. Ashley would be very quiet and would never talk about herself. She would just want to hear, Brittany talk. Brittany said that she would hear a man's voice, and then the phone would go dead. No goodbye, no, hey, I got to go. See you later. Just click, and she'd be gone. Ashley had called her in the middle of the night one night, the last time that anybody ever heard from Ashley.
This would have been approximately August, late August 2009, or maybe even the beginning of September, sometime like that.
It's a little later than that. We're still trying to get these the actual records from the phone. But the last time that anybody ever talked to her was she had called Brittany, and she said it was in the middle of the night, early morning, and she said, "I need money. I, this is life or death. I need to have some money." And she was crying. She was hysterical on the phone. She wanted Brittany's debit card, and Brittany said, where are you? I can't help you if you don't tell me where you are. And she said, I can't tell you anything right now, but please, I need your help. It's life or death. And Brittany got angry with her. And she said, you know what, Ashley, when you can tell me where you are, then I'll help you. And she hung up on her. And, we don't know. We don't know at that point where she was or, what happened to her.
I need to ask you a very blunt question right now, and I'm sure the listeners are probably wondering this question as well. Why do you think Brittany never told you about any of this?
During that conversation, she said to Ashley, "Why are you asking me for money? Why don't you call your mom?" And she's like, "No, I can't call my mom." I don't know why Brittany didn't call me. I honestly, I don't know. I don't think that. I think Brittany and Ashley were kind of having, they had kind of fallen out when she left Arkansas because Brittany was disgusted with what Ashley was doing. She was really not happy to see her friend act that way. And Brittany was getting ready she was engaged, and Ashley was going to be her maid of honor. And Ashley was just she wasn't available. She was just gone. And Brittany was angry with her. And I think Brittany just kind of wrote her off and was just really angry with Ashley.
Mm.
And I also believe that Brittany dealt with her drug addiction. I never dealt with her drug addiction, but I have had people around that have had an addiction, and how frustrating it is to try to help somebody and they keep going back and falling off the wagon, and they keep, using. At some point you just say, I can't help you. There's nothing more I can do. And I think that's kind of where Brittany was at the time with Ashley.
When do you think this? It seems that at some point after, possibly after she graduated high school and before she went to Arkansas, which is not a large span of time, is the time that she developed this drug addiction to just in the general category of opioids. Can you look back at that time now and put a finger on what might have happened then? Was she? You told me she had migraines. Is it possible this was a prescription that just blew out of control, as so many millions of Americans are experienced now? We have a huge opioid addiction in the United States. Would you portray it that way?
Yeah, I mean, she had filled the prescriptions. I just can't recall what it was, but it was definitely a pain for pain. She was having really bad migraines. The doctor told her that she had to be in a room, no lights, with a heating pad over her head and her eyes, because she would vomit. She would get, the pain was so bad. And, I definitely saw a change in her behavior when she started dating Carlo. I don't know if she started doing drugs at that time. I just saw a difference in how she treated our family, how disrespectful she was, not only to us, but herself, and the way she carried herself, the way she was dressing. And she just wanted to live in the dark, and she just didn't want to, be accountable for what she was doing. And I don't know if that's where it really started. But definitely, I agree with what you're saying, is that it was a very short time from the time that she got to Arkansas, and got back here, and her disappearance. It's not long. I mean, all of this happened so quick. When you
Very fast.
when you look back at it, it just all was towards the last couple of years. From the time that we saw her, it was all compacted into 3 years.
Yeah. She graduated high school in May of 2007. 8 months later, or something like that, she goes to Arkansas, and already she has some sort of opioid addiction. She's gone from a maybe very active girl, maybe even a little tomboyish. That would be my words,
Yep.
maybe a word. She goes from that to wanting to go to clubs, wearing sexual clothes, sexually provocative clothes, wanting to meet guys. Has this addiction, and to the point where a friend of hers, Brittany, can't even get her away from this. She is,
Right.
that happened very quickly, and then she comes back to California, and then she goes even a step further. She starts working for a woman who is essentially a madam who runs a prostitution ring. Very, very quick, very fast.
Yeah, very fast. And
Very fast.
I feel like now that I've, been able to put this puzzle together, I could see the progression from, Ashley going and being a personal assistant, and maybe she is, making profiles, and it's not really real to her at that point. It's okay, picture and write them. She was an excellent writer. And you do something, you're exposed to it, and pretty soon it's not shocking anymore. And these girls get desensitized to this whole underground prostitution world. It's human trafficking, right? It's
Yes,
like
it is.
it's normalizing this abnormal behavior, and they're just she's around other girls that are prostitutes, and they're young like her, and they're doing it too.
Yeah, it's
So
like the new normal. She's around people who are doing women, young women, who are doing the same thing as she is, so it doesn't seem like there's anything unusual about it.
right.
Now, you did find out, though, of a woman who was very familiar with this madam, although we're still not sure what her name is, but we're going to get into that in a moment, who kind of knew what was going on in Riverside. What did this woman who you got to know tell you? Her daughter almost got wrapped up in this.
That's right. So I had a hairdresser, and she did hair extensions, and she was known for the type of hair extensions that she did. And she had clientele, large percentage that were actually dancers, strippers, and so her daughter is the same age as Ashley. Her name's Taylor, and she saw the exact same ad on Craigslist, and it was for a personal assistant, and with a lot of dollar signs and traveling and this, that, the other thing. And Taylor almost, she brought the ad to her mom, and her mother, because of the clients that she had an awareness of this madam that ran this prostitution ring in Riverside County. And she was like, yeah, no, don't call that number. That's this woman. And so, thank God she was able to, intervene in, Taylor didn't get involved in anything like that. But, I feel like, that definitely is the same person that posted that ad.
Yeah. And even though this woman, we're not going to use her name, but she also, though, did not know what this woman's name was that was running this ring right there in kind of the same city in California. She just knew about it.
She did not know the name, right?
Yeah, she just knew about it.
The name of the person.
Okay.
She knew about it.
Okay. Now to move on, and just some things that, of course, the police don't have much to go on. They talk to some of Ashley's friends, and of course, you find out all this information. But then in April of 2010, Carlo kind of pops back up. What happened there?
Oh, I got a call from the police. It was from a different district, and they asked me and he had my phone number. So they asked me if I knew who he was, because they thought he was, prowling around the area in Corona, because he kept driving around and around, like driving really slow past the houses, trying to remember which house was ours. And
you didn't live in that neighborhood anymore, and he didn't know that.
Right. We had moved, and at the time we were living in San Diego. And so they they picked him up, and he was later released, but he said he was looking for Ashley. He remembered, the neighborhood she lived in, and he was desperately trying to find her. And so he was driving around looking for her.
Kind of a strange story, and this would have approximately been 8 months after you saw her the last time, and approximately 5 months after you filed the first police report. And then all of a sudden, A little while later, he's driving around your old neighborhood. The police find him, and he obviously did not know that you had moved. And I'm guessing, even though you thought that he was a bad influence on her at the time, do you get the feeling that he had no idea either that what she got wrapped up in? What do you think? In fact, you had a chance to talk
I,
to him if you want to talk about that.
yeah. So we started my good friend Robin started a Facebook community page for Ashley where, people can post, notes or any tips and things like that. And so he recently, within the last, 6 months, had posted on the Facebook. He put a picture of the two of them together, and I think it was maybe it might have been, around maybe a prom picture, and so we had a chance to have a long chat on Facebook, and he had no awareness that she was missing for all this time. And he lives out of the country now, but he was just kind of torn up about everything. So I honestly don't think that he does, but with all this that has happened, I mean, I can believe anything these days, right? It's like,
yeah, sure. But being that he was looking for her in your old neighborhood, especially, let's just say, an average of 6 to 7 months after anybody talked to her, would lead you to believe that he had no idea. Just was, when he
right,
was telling the truth, that never saw any flyers about her missing, never saw any news reports about her missing, didn't see anything online, and he was just looking for an old girlfriend. Maybe he was a little,
right,
he's just maybe looking to rekindle a relationship or something, and then finds out that she'd disappeared. It's
right.
possible. Okay. Now, also, Ashley's name has popped up in a couple other states. What can you tell listeners about that? And this might go into the sex trafficking, human trafficking angle.
Right. So, it's been over 8 years now, and we have an annual briefing, I guess, with the detectives, and that's when we're updated on anything that they've come across. And for example, we were waiting for her license to expire, her driver's license to expire, and the date came and it went, and she never renewed her license. And every year they check, and to date she's never renewed her driver's license. So the one thing is, twice they told me that her name had come up, and Ashley Koller, same, Ashley Victoria Koller, same birthday, had come up, that her name was run in one time in New Mexico. But there was nothing, there were no records. So somebody could have had, given a name. We don't know the circumstances, but,
Okay.
For sure one time in New Mexico, they have that record, and they thought that one time in Florida, they had mentioned to me, they said, we believe that her name was run again, in Florida over the last couple of years.
All right. So maybe it was her. Ashley is a fairly common first name, especially these days, especially around girls Ashley's age. Koller, not the most common last name, but there are many Kollers, Koller, in the United States. So could be a totally different girl. Could be. We just aren't sure, but there is the possibility that maybe it was her. We just don't know.
Right.
And something I don't have in my notes, but I feel like I have to ask you about this, is that I saw that on her Charley Project profile that sometimes she might have gone by a different name, and her middle name was Victoria. What can you tell? Can you talk about that?
During the investigation, and the detectives asked, could she have another alias? And she definitely, she's told me that she wanted to change her last name. She actually asked me if I would assist her with having her last name legally changed. She didn't like her last name, and a lot of it is because of her bad relationship with her father. And she wanted to use the last name Lawson, and that was her grandmother's maiden name, Lawson. And so if there was her choice, I believe that she would drop the name Koller and go with Ashley Lawson or Victoria Lawson.
So there's the possibility that maybe she didn't renew her driver's license under Ashley Koller. Maybe she went and got a new identity with Victoria Lawson, or a variation on that, Vicky Lawson, let's say.
Right.
So it's possible.
We don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there would have to still be a link between her, driver's license and fingerprints. Even if your name changes, they could still match you up, right? And
they could, but in the line of work that she had gotten into, there's a lot of ID theft and forging of documents and all sorts of things that go on.
I'm sure.
And there's a very well-known case from this past year where a woman successfully lived under another woman's name for 30 years. Stole a baby's name who had died in California, I believe it was, and she moved to Texas, and not even her husband knew until she died that she had been somebody else. She was pretending to be somebody else all the time. So, but in sex trafficking, human trafficking rings, ID theft, I've covered some cases on Unfound where people who have disappeared, their IDs were eventually stolen. So it does happen. That's why I thought I needed to bring that up, just in case anything like that, popped up. Now, the listeners should know that while the first conversation that Kim and I had, there was something that was in the back of my mind. I don't even know why I even knew about it. I to this day, I have no idea. But being that this prostitution ring in Riverside, California, I had told Kim during our conversation, I think closer to the end of the conversation, I said, man, there's something about that just really, I read a story about that recently, and that's all I could really tell her. And while we were on the phone, you actually got on the computer and found exactly what I was talking about. You discovered that there was a prostitution ring in Riverside that was broken up in 2015.
Yeah.
And so who is Mei Wang? MEI is the first name, WANG is the last name. What can you tell the listeners about her?
Well, she is a madam who has, been caught for human trafficking. She ran several brothels throughout the Riverside County from the year 2009 and up until she was arrested a couple of years ago. She would solicit her clients online with these profiles. And she is, I guess, awaiting sentence in December or January coming up. She may be serving 6 years in prison for her crimes.
And this was not something that you had ever heard about until it kind of just, in passing, it even jumped into my head. You'd not known about this.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I don't. The one thing about missing persons case and why I appreciate what you're doing so much is that initially they go out and they get whatever leads, and the after that, after the basically the low hanging fruit, they really don't do much after that.
No, they don't. No.
Yeah, and after you had mentioned it, and we did find that story about her, you encouraged me to go and talk to the lead detective, and trying to get in touch with him. The department wouldn't even. Oh, do you know him? I'm like, what is this? This is. I tried to tell them. I said, my daughter's been missing, and I think that this woman had something to do with it. I mean, if she's in, prison right now, can somebody, I just want somebody to interview her and find out. And that's, very, very frustrating.
It is.
Very frustrating.
But this Mei Wang certainly fits the profile. You never knew it. Nobody ever knew who. Of course, Ashley never told you, never told her name, even under the guise of selling imported handbags. You never knew the name, but this woman certainly fits the profile of the kind of person that Ashley would have been working for.
Yeah.
Same city, same business. And what's most important about this is, not to my knowledge, I couldn't find anything. She never was in Santa Barbara. This Mei Wang operated out of the Riverside. Is it La Quinta? Not La Quinta. La Quinta area of California, which is nowhere near Santa Barbara. So that goes back to what Ashley said. Oh, we're moving to Santa Barbara. I think we're maybe thinking now that never happened.
I agree. I don't believe that they did move to Santa Barbara. I think she stayed out in the Sun City area in Riverside County, and maybe they moved her around. I do know, in talking to the detectives, they were aware of prostitution rings in the area. And the very first time that they had, told me that they were concerned that she may be involved in human trafficking, and they were, telling me that they do move the girls around, and the girls, a lot of them stay on drugs. They keep them on drugs, and so they, can get them. They have control over them. And I just remember just arguing and crying and just saying, you don't understand. My daughter doesn't do drugs. She's not a drug addict. She's not one of those girls. And it's just so hard to understand how this happened. I mean,
yeah.
My daughter's gone, and she's involved in something like this. Completely wiped, her existence wiped from, away. And these people, they know exactly, they're predators.
They are. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
They can spot the weaknesses in people very quickly, especially younger women, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Whether the weakness is the girl's need for love, or the girl's need for drugs, or whatever it is, clothes, shoes, whatever it may be, they will find that weakness and they will exploit it. They are masters at that. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to, I know that I have a lot of mothers and daughters who are listeners. What would you say to them out there? If a mother suspects, here's this story and says, you know what? I caught my daughter watching that same TV show. Or I caught my daughter reading about something online regarding escort services and things. What would you say to parents like that? That any recommendations, any suggestions?
The whole thing that's shocking is that we're not from that world, and I mean, it's like the farthest thing ever that you can even conceive to be a concern. You know, it just, I mean, you just would never think that. You watch a movie and, you know, somebody gets angry and they get a gun and they shoot somebody, you don't think, oh my God, you know, my son's going to get angry and shoot some. You just don't think that way. And, I mean, the signs are there. If you feel something, you feel anything, you know, your gut. Like I felt like, it's kind of weird. Like I would say things to myself like, well, it's a little weird that she's doing that, you know. A little concerned about that. Be very concerned about it. I mean, if you have that feeling, an intuition, that, you know, that gut feeling, I say you have to act on it. You really do.
And
And just never think that your child is above lying to you. You know, yeah.
and even if they are 18 of adult age, which is considered to be adult age in the United States, that you should know where your kid's working and maybe know who their boss is and get an address and an email and a physical location and
Yes.
and things like that. And if it looks like they're coming into maybe some money that they don't, you know, doesn't look like they would be earning in a regular job, um, you know, you should be concerned, even, no matter what age they are, 18, 21, 25, it shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter.
I mean, the change, the change. You basically have a certain disposition when you're, you know, you're hardwired to be a certain way, and then of course, you know, the way you're raised and everything you're exposed to definitely influences you as a person. You know, to completely turn around from that, there's something going on, something really wrong, really wrong.
I have to tell you, I'm inclined to believe, being that it seems that this addiction to opioids started before she got the job. I'm just wondering if she thought that she needed to go in that direction because it's quick money, and maybe she figured she couldn't, you know, feed her addiction with a regular job, so she needed to do something like what she did. I can't help but think that. And then, of course, it was exacerbated because then those types of people are going to see that and take advantage of it as well. It's something that's in my head. I'm just wondering if the opioid addiction led to, you know, to what she chose to do. It's something I'm going to think about. What's it been like? I know this is a very obvious question, but what's it been like the last 8 years, Kim?
You know, the hardest part about dealing with a child that's missing is the not knowing if she's alive, if she's being hurt, if she's, you know, it's, you just want to protect your children, and it's just like nothing is the same for our family. Nothing, because we don't know where she is, and you know, like, there are families that, you know, lose their children and or a loved one, and you do have to deal with that loss. But the loss of a child because they're missing in the unknown, especially with the information that we have today, the way her existence was wiped clean, and all the other facts that we've learned.
It makes it tougher.
It does, because you just, I just start spinning. I just can't even stand to think of the kind of position that she's in today. And I know that she needs help. I know that she's gone because she is unable to reach out to us. She's being prevented from getting help. She's prevented from calling us. And I know that she's not gone because she wants to be gone. Maybe that stupid show, when she first thought of doing this, it was Hollywood to her. And certainly that Diary of a Call Girl series totally glamorized being, a call girl.
It glamorizes something in which there's no glamour to it at all. It's just dirty,
right, exactly.
And it hurts a lot of people.
Dirty.
It hurts a lot of people.
Yes. I mean, she's just being raped and fed drugs, and God knows, I just keep praying for her. And I just through your contact and Emily's, want to thank the two of you, because nobody else is going to look for her. Definitely the law enforcement agencies, their caseload is tremendous, and she's forgotten. She's a case file. She's not a priority to them. And
she's just a name on a page. That's it.
Yeah, and then they go and do their job, and nobody is going to continue to search for her. Nobody will. So, you're asking what advice, what I have to say to other moms out there, other parents out there. And, that's my next, offer of advice is you have to get out there and continue to turn over every stone and keep looking.
You have a Facebook page for Ashley, don't you?
We do, yes.
And I'm going to make sure that everybody knows about it. By the time that people are hearing this, I'm going to be making sure everybody knows about it, and they go there and spread the word around. What is the name of it?
It's Ashley Koller, missing since 2009. That's her Facebook page.
Okay. I'm going to make sure that everybody goes there, and as all the listeners know, I do quite a bit of publicity during the week to make sure everybody knows what we're going to be talking about, who it is, where people should be going, what they should be talking about regarding the case that comes out every Friday. So, like I said, by the time they're hearing you talk to me, they've already done quite a bit of reading about your daughter, Ashley. Any last words, Kim?
Well, what I can say is that some of the preliminary reports, they are not accurate, because, as I said, it took this investigation for us to know what really happened to Ashley. And when the Corona Police Department first released the missing persons report, I mean, we had no idea. Absolutely not. So, I wouldn't necessarily, look at all of those dates on there.
Yes.
if you have any information, obviously our phone numbers are there. You can call us directly, or the lead detective phone number is on there. Any help, anything is welcome, and we will continue to search for Ashley. We know that we know we're going to see her again. We do. We know we'll see her again.
And Kim, I'm gonna do everything I can to. You're right that there are a lot of dates and some things that aren't right concerning Ashley's disappearance, and I'll do what I can to get that information changed, because the most important part is, getting the information right. It's very important.
Right.
And I deeply appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing to help these missing women, to keep the light shining on them. And I just pray for every family out there to, continue to have faith and be strong, and pray that you are reunited with your loved ones.
Kim, thank you for being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was my October 2017 interview with Kim Brandy, mother of Ashley Koller. I once again thank her for appearing on Unfound over 4 years ago. I chose Ashley's episode to be revisited because it's one of the few disappearances we've covered where the impression is that the person just kind of faded away. We don't have a disappearance date. We don't have a disappearance location. We don't know where Ashley was living. We have zero phone information. And we have no suspects. In fact, there might not be any reason to have any suspects. Even among the 235 disappearances Unfound has covered, all those points put together are rare. Why are the circumstances like that? Mainly because Ashley, out of all of the missing people we've covered, put up probably the biggest facade of all of them. She was a very skillful liar. On top of that, she had a mother who wanted so badly to believe what her daughter was saying. And it's surely not a coincidence that Ashley disappeared not long after discovering that her lies had been exposed. This is where I think my experience of an additional 4 years comes into play. I would like if you could contemplate the following points thoroughly. First, what this would mean that Ashley disappeared after being found out to be a liar is that she herself initiated her disappearance. Meaning, at the moment that Kim asked her about the stuff on that computer, Ashley decided she didn't want to have anything to do with her family ever again. That would be a decision she made, not her pimp or madam or whoever, if there even was one. The second and last point is that in retrospect, I view Ashley's case to be much more about drugs than prostitution. Why do I say that? It has to do with the last call made to Brittany. Ashley was asking, if not begging, for money. This strikes me as being more like the addicts we've featured on Unfound and less like the sex workers. Sure, many of the prostitutes we've covered on Unfound had drug problems. However, needing money is almost exclusively a drug user issue when it comes to disappearances. Unfortunately, given Ashley's extensive lies, we must be very open to the idea that the call was just another ruse. That Ashley really didn't need the money, but was just trying to rip Brittany off. Either way, this is still more the behavior of an addict than a sex worker. What this all means, and although I don't do theories on these episodes, here in 2021, almost 2022, I'm much more open to the idea that Ashley disappeared due to her drug addiction and less to the idea that a client, a pimp, or madam caused her to go missing. Now I want to give you something to think about as you consider Ashley's disappearance. I went to NAMUS and did a search for women between the ages of 17 and 25 from California who went missing between the beginning of 2008 and the end of 2010. Only 8 results came up. That's it. However, there are 2 cases from the same general area of Riverside and Corona. Fernanda Rodriguez from San Bernardino and Shira Erickson from Bakersfield. Why did I do this search? Well, here's what I think I know. Ashley surely wasn't the only Southern California young woman doing the work she was doing, pretending to be marketing handbags, but really marketing herself. What if we were to find a couple of other young women who went missing who were also doing the same thing? That would be a significant piece of information. And if that connection could be made, my opinion would then swing back toward prostitution being the cause of Ashley's disappearance. Until then, if Ashley is not alive here in 2021, I think drugs are the cause and not murder. I'll leave the theorizing up to you. And that's the program. If you found it informative, please go to the app that you use to listen to Unfound and give this podcast a nice review. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Dentzel. Merry Christmas. And you've been listening to Unfound.